you can so we can watch it again on YouTube. Okay. So our Big Red Book offers us guidance regarding our ACA healing journey. From page 125 in the Big Red Book, for adult children with addiction issues, we recommend you attend 12-step meetings to address those issues as well. While ACA is often the only program for many adult children, ACA is not a replacement for addicts working a program in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or Cocaine Anonymous, etc. So, let's see. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, who will share for up to 20 minutes, followed by a question and answer period of time. We will continue the recording into the question and answer session. So if you don't want your face to be seen on our YouTube channel, just turn off your camera and when you're talking. I believe you can also send us your questions through the chat if you don't want your voice to be heard. So complete anonymity if that's what we need. So Jon P, he's from Florida, and he's been working his ACA program for like a year and a half. And he's been doing his AA and NA for the last 5.5 years. So Jon is going to share his experience, strength, and hope with us for up to 20 minutes. And Lisa's going to start the timer, and you are on deck, Mr. Jon. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to share with us today. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Tammy, and everybody else being of service tonight. My name is Jon, and I'm an adult child. I'm also an addict. That's not all I am. I'm a creative guy. I'm a musician. I think I'm kind and caring. And I've been learning how to do all that in healthy ways. And I also want to welcome you all and thank you all for being here. And this is what helps us all recover, is not being alone. I've been learning that too, because I've tried recovering alone a lot and it doesn't work. So I'll start off telling you a little bit about my childhood and just kind of go from there. So forgive me, I made notes because I get way off track sometimes. So my father, first of all, both my parents love me deeply. There was never any question of that. But they had their issues as well. My father was an addict. He did many different substances, not really one particular thing all the time. My mother, she she has her own trauma. My father does too. And she wasn't really an addict, but she suffers with depression. She's a very cynical person. She's done a lot of seemingly selfish things in the past. And I still struggle with my relationship with her to this day, but I'm learning what I can do to, make that hurt less. So yeah, both of them, I know my mother for sure had a dysfunctional childhood. She was abused in a couple of different ways. And my mother tells me my father was spoiled. But he likely witnessed a lot of domestic violence in his household and stuff like that as well. And they didn't have the resources that I have today. And and one has to seek help. One has to see a problem and then seek that help. And one thing I've been learning is to forgive them, because nobody can give something that wasn't given to them that they don't have. So working on that. I believe I started to see traits of the ACA laundry list at a very young age, which I think kind of predisposed me to being willing to try substances around age 11. That was the first time I tried marijuana and alcohol, and boy, I loved it. because I didn't like who I was and I wasn't comfortable in my skin. Um, my mother left when I was about 6. She came down to Florida. We lived in Georgia. She came down to Florida and she met another man like almost immediately. And it was a man who really didn't care for me right from the get go. And she knew he didn't like kids. So, there's all that. um, Mom couldn't really be alone. And while she said she loved me, like actions like that kind of spoke a different story to me. And my father found a lady too, and they did a lot of drugs together. And I saw my father apparently was always putting his hands on the women he was with, but they hid it from me when my mother was still with him. And she would send me outside to jump on the trampoline and play in the yard. I played by myself a lot. And I would hear the screaming and the banging from the trailer, but I didn't really see anything until she left, and then he got with another lady, and then I got to witness adults behaving like crazy people. And I saw him put his hands on her. She had a son my age. We were both about 8 years old, and I kind of stood by in shock while he was screaming for my father to stop hitting his mother, and all pretty crazy stuff. Sorry if I'm being too graphic, but I'm gonna move on. So that's pretty much the story there. So yeah, started seeing a lot of things kids shouldn't see. I saw a little bit of drug use here and there. I wasn't supposed to. Maybe some, other grown up type stuff. And so yeah, when I tried substances at 11 years old, I was off to the races. And while I was too young to get my hands on things at will, I took any opportunity I could to have a drink or smoke some weed. And, that went on and it got more and more common as I grew older. I didn't really fit in at high school, kind of on purpose. I didn't want to fit in. I didn't feel like I fit in. I mean, I kind of viewed the world like everybody else knows exactly what they're doing and what they're going to do next. But I'm nobody. I don't have a place in this world and I don't have it all figured out. And then I developed resentments towards all those normal people. And so, yeah, it was just me against the world. And I found a few other outcasts and made them my friends. And we formed really good bonds. But, we also did bad things together and just riding around, acting crazy, partying, drinking and driving, booze, weed. It was a little while before I got into the hard stuff. I kind of moved around during my teenage years, back and forth between my father's area and my mother's area. My mother moved a few times. Her and my first stepfather had a baby when I was 10. That's my little sister, and I love her to death, and we're very close now. And I watched her grow up, and I had a resentment towards her before she was even born because this other guy that doesn't like me is now my mom's having a baby with him. And but as soon as I saw her as a little baby in the little thing at the hospital, I just broke down in happy tears. And from then on, she's been my little buddy. And that was pretty cool. I mean, I didn't get feelings like that too often, like true love for another person. And that's pretty good. It made me feel nice. So yeah, when I hit about age 17, I dropped out of high school. And then shortly thereafter, we moved from a little country town in Alabama down to Daytona Beach, Florida. And for those of you who don't know, it's quite the party town. They used to have MTV Spring Break down there and all that good stuff. And I had lived there before in elementary school, but this time I really got into some stuff. And I started with the hard drugs, different types of cocaine and the different ways of using. And it got bad. Alcohol was always there in the background. Marijuana was always there. But then, it got to be more and more often I was doing the heavy stuff. And, I bounced around from job to job. I never held a job too long. Um, I always still felt out of place. The drinking and the cocaine was all social lubricants, and it helped me when I started getting into rock and roll bands. It helped me perform on stage and kind of not be afraid. And it helped me talk to people and just interact with people. And I remember sometimes I would go to like a normal type of function around those same people that I was in the music scene with, just a cookout in the middle of the day, and I wasn't wasted yet. I felt so awkward. And it was like I didn't even know those people and they didn't know me because that was two different people. And so yeah, just got crazier and crazier. I had a couple of relationships as I got into my 20s and then my 30s. One lasted about 2 years, but any relationship that I had romantically, just I was sick, and usually they were sick too, and I would dive in head first just because some lady was giving me attention and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I'm like, let's go. Let's move in together. Let's be one together. And without thinking about any consequences or trying to get to know them at all. And I didn't really know a lot about life anyway, because I was using all the time. That's how I got by. I didn't really learn a lot about how to do things, how to socialize, what to look for in people, healthy people. I wasn't a healthy person. I didn't have any healthy role models, so to speak. So was just kind of navigating in the darkness. So yeah, I had a 5-year relationship, and we got married at the end of 2015. She had 3 young boys, and I was the only father figure they had in their life during that time. And I wasn't a good stepfather. I was in no shape to be parenting anyone. And, I'm not proud of how I was as a stepfather. We had a lot of good times, but, there's a lot of stuff that I am ashamed of or feel guilty about. I just was not emotionally mature enough to handle 3 rambunctious kids all the time and a mother who kind of seemed to pawn them off on me a lot. So, that ended. She kind of just fell in love with another man, and it just, it went from there. And so around Christmas 2015, I moved about an hour away where I live now, stayed with my mother, still working an hour away. Finally got my own apartment back in Daytona. And that's when things got really bad. That divorce just really sent me on a downward spiral. I felt even more terrible about myself. I thought less of myself, and I just did not care anymore. I started, you know, doing demoralizing things. The methods I was using to take drugs, the way I was handling myself. Um, it was just all bad. I was drinking way more than ever, using way more drugs in general than ever. I was hanging out with shady people. I was hanging out in shady places. And I mean, it makes my skin crawl. It makes my stomach hurt when I even think about some of the places I went and the things I did. But so the first thing I tried to help myself right after or during that situation is I tried a geographical change. I ran up to Nebraska. I had a friend up there and she invited me to come try things up there. So, at the time, not knowing what I know now, about addiction and recovery and all that, that doesn't work because there I was, still a very sick man. And while I might have quit the hard stuff, my drinking got worse than ever. And the winters there are brutal. And I had lived in the Southeast all my life. I wasn't used to that. And that just fed my depression feelings. And it got to where I was starting to get called out at work for smelling like alcohol, acting like I was still drunk because I was still drunk from the night before. And um, so, yeah, after a year and a half being up there, I came running back down to Florida and I got a new job down here. And about 6 months after I started there, still continuing with the binge drinking and all that, I took some time off and I checked into an inpatient rehab. And I did learn a lot there. And it really helped me to kind of shut out from the world for about 6 weeks, focus on recovery, no other influences coming in. And we had groups about learning coping skills. And the thing was, I really didn't know what I was learning and or how to learn it or why I was learning it. So but while we were in there, we got exposure to AA. There would be people who would come in and just volunteer to speak about NA or hold like a kind of like our own little meeting in there and just show us what it was like. So I thought it was cool. And I had every intention on, continuing to go to meetings after I left rehab, but I didn't. I continued seeing a therapist there as outpatient about once a week and then once a month. And she even told me smoking weed was okay with her. Now, more recently, I've discovered that I can't do any substances, none of them. They will all take me down. If not right away, then eventually they take me down. So um, I went to IOP, intense outpatient, because I had been changing medications, psych medications, all through 2022. And I was in a very bad place. So I took more time off from that job, went to IOP, and there I learned a lot more. And after I left there, they set me up pretty good. I already was going to AA meetings and I had a sponsor and I had a therapist to go to outside of there. And, but I still hadn't found a medication that worked quite right for me. And so that was challenging. I had a lot of side effects. They were very uncomfortable. And, I was trying for a little while and then started back smoking weed again. And I
Jon,
still at the time didn't realize that that was bad for me because,
gentle 5-minute warning.
oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, so I'll try to speed it along here. So yeah, things didn't get too much better. I made another effort to work a program. I didn't get very far. And then I kind of just backed out of the whole thing over time and went back to smoking weed. And long story short, fast forward to last October 2024, I went back to IOP. And I'm sorry, before that, though, my therapist that I was seeing guided me to ACA. And I was like, wow, this is where I belong. Because I had no idea groups like this existed. And when I read that laundry list, I was like, wow, this is something I definitely need in my life because I had every one of those. And then I looked at the opposite laundry list and I was like, oh, wow, some of those too. And I looked at the promises and I was like, I want that to happen. And so, yeah, after this last trip to IOP, I will say that I did relapse again shortly after, but I got clean pretty quick. So I've now been clean for about 46 days and I started going to NA because as far as my substance programs, I identify more with NA because it includes all the stuff I did. And I still have a presence here in ACA because for me, in general, the way I see it is, yes, I'm an addict and that needs to be addressed. And I need to stay clean and sober so that I can do this work also in ACA. Because without a foundation of a clear head and a purpose, then I'm not going to get anywhere. And, it a good concept that I've learned as well is it's a journey, not a destination. Another one that resonates with me is progress, not perfection. One day at a time is another one of my favorites. And I could go on with all the great sayings I've learned, but I love them all really. So here I am I've been clean for a good little amount of time, and I plan on staying clean. I feel really hopeful about my future. I've got a sponsor in NA, and I've begun actually working the steps, which is the farthest I've ever gone in actually working a program. I've been picking up the phone when I feel like crap, and when my sickness tells me that I don't feel like picking up the phone, I pick it up anyway because I need to tell somebody that. And Zoom meetings are all day, every day. I mean, I'm in 3 different groups. I can find a meeting, you know. So whatever I got to do, I'm ready to do it. And you know, it's not bad. I mean, I had to be ready to do it, and I had to go through everything I've gone through to get here. And I have to recognize that everything is as it should be. And sometimes you just have to get beat up a lot, or some of us have to get beat up a lot, just talking about me here, in order to finally be ready to help myself. And I see my time is running out. I think I said everything I want to say. I just want to close by quoting a couple of lines from my favorite prayer of St. Francis. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is discord, let me bring harmony. And that's kind of what I want to do in this world. So I'll wrap it up there. Thank you everybody for being here and listening. And I might have got a little, you know, carried away there. But anyway, thank you. I will pass.
Thank you, John. I think everyone can
Thank you,
unmute
John.
themselves and
Thank
say
you,
thank
John.
you.
Thank you so much, John.
John, wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank you,
John.
John.
Yes.
You were heard, John. Thank you.
All right, let me turn my script back on. Yes, thank you. Do. All right. So at this time, the speaker would like to invite you to ask him or her questions. Him tonight. You may raise your hand to ask your questions, or you may enter them into the chat. And then if there's time remaining after all questions have been answered, we can open up the rest of the meeting time to sharing. And just a friendly reminder that the question and answer portion is being recorded for our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be seen or heard, you know what to do. You can still put your questions in the chat. So let's start with Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. First off, I didn't know what the acronym IOP stands for, so I wanted to know if you could define that. And then also, through all of this, do you suffer from depression? And if so, was the addictions, you know, I mean, did you really feel that, or was it just the self-medicating, you know, that you kept those the like depression at bay? Thank you.
Well, thanks, Lisa. Those are great questions. So IOP stands for Intense Outpatient. It's like a therapy program, a lot of group therapy, and it's pretty intense, like it says. It's 3 days a week. It was like 5 hours a day. And we would have like 5 different sessions, different groups on different topics. And then I also got to see a psychiatrist while I was there and, you know, do medication stuff. And so I'm happy to say now I finally found an antidepressant that works for me without all the terrible side effects. And that lays a good foundation. Like one of those therapists said, I like this analogy. He said, the meds will put the chain on the bike. The support system will help you steer the bike, but I have to pedal the bike. So it all needs to be there. Like it says in literature in one of my fellowships, the medical stuff, I forgot what it says, but all of it's not enough. It all has to be there. And the depression, it was hard to tell for me if it was just substances or if I was actually depressed underneath that. But after having some clean time in the past and still feeling pretty down, I did kind of realize that I am depressed. And I noticed that certain medications will actually help me, get up to a point where I actually am motivated to do the rest of the stuff I need to do. And I forgot to mention too, I was told by a couple of professionals that I have PTSD, maybe severe PTSD. So that it plays a part. Anxiety, depression, it all kind of haunts me at some point or another. But yeah, I hope that answers your questions. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lisa.
thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Michelle, and then we will go to the chat for a question. Come on in, Michelle.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, adult child. John, thank you so much for such a great share. I identified with so much. I have a background also in addiction, substances and alcohol. And I've been sober in AA, and then combining that with ACA has been so powerful. It's helped me not relapse, basically. I feel like digging deep, and that's what I heard. I heard recovery in your share, which is really powerful. My question is, how do you balance it all now? Because with NA and ACA, and how does that look like in your weekly schedule in terms of meetings, meeting out with your sponsor and all that?
Thank you, Lisa. That's a great question. So right now I am in between jobs, so that helps a little bit. But while I was working, I do ACA mainly. I do on Zoom, and I still see a therapist, and she really does help kind of guide me through decisions like that. And I heard from the therapist in the IOP program, as well as my outside therapist from there, that I should focus on the substance program and get a sponsor in there and work those steps. So after hearing that, I kind of just prioritize NA. I will still go to an AA meeting if there's one available and I need a meeting. But I prefer NA when it comes to the addiction side of things. And I'd like to make this ACA group my home group. I don't know if I told anyone that yet, but I try to make this meeting every Sunday, and it kind of helps me, get ready to start a new week. And so I still have a presence here, but NA is my priority right now, and I'm working the steps in that one. I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the question in the chat says, thank you, John. What was most helpful about ACA when you found it? And what is most helpful about ACA for you now?
Thanks for that question, Mariana. Sorry, I had to see who asked that. Thank you. So when I first discovered ACA, like I said, my therapist mentioned it to me and told me to check it out. She gave me the website, and I went there, and she actually told me specifically to look at the laundry list. And when I looked at that and read it, I just felt like, oh, like the same way I felt when I first read the AA Big Book. I was like, wow, that is my story. But the AA literature was kind of just part of it. And now there was this whole other part, and I'm like, oh wow, this is like the other stuff that's underneath that addiction and that behavior. This is kind of like what led me to that. And so what's helping me now in ACA is just like in any of these groups, it's the fellowship, the support. I also have phone numbers of folks in ACA that I talk to, and it's just kind of a different focus. It focuses on the trauma and our laundry list traits, and if maybe my NA sponsor might not want to hear about my mommy issues or whatever, so maybe I might call an ACA fellow traveler to talk about that stuff. But I don't know. I wish I had a more broad answer for you there, but it really just the fact that I could really relate to the literature when I found it. And, I find a lot of support here. I hope that's a good answer for you.
Thank you, John. Come on in, Aaron.
Thank you. Hey, John, listen, I'm just really, like, so happy for you. Like, really, I cried when you, you did the St. Francis prayer, okay? So my main thing is that, it's not even like a question, is that I love what you just said about, the meds do with three things you said. And I also became an alcoholic. My parents, of course, were alcoholics. So yeah, most of the time that's going to happen. And I got sober April 19th, 1996, and it seems like there's so much more information. Like, it seems archaic. Like, I did get sober and followed all the protocols. So I just wanted to know if you could repeat that. You said the meds changed, like stop the bike or something, or that was really cool. So I might have to put that up on my refrigerator. So if you could just repeat that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. And yeah, the analogy was the bicycle analogy. And he told me that the medication will put the chain on the bike, and support, like the fellowships, support groups, therapy, those help you steer the bike. But I have to pedal the bike.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Keep going, yeah.
Great analogy. Thank you, Aaron. Come on in, Horace.
Good evening. My name is Horace, ACA.
Can't quite hear you. A little bit low.
Hold on. Is that better?
That's better, yes.
So many different speakers I'm playing with here on this old computer. Horace, ACA. Hi, John. Great to hear you. I really like getting to know the faces in these spaces, right? And that's what, these talks enable me to do. So much that I related with, so much. The NA is the place that kind of captures all of that side of me. All right. I get more specifically when I go to CMA. And I loved how you mentioned that, all that other stuff kind of makes way for you to go even deeper in your ACA program. And this is where I think the healing for me really, really starts deep, so deep inside to that inner child, which is not stuff I heard about until I came to ACA, right? Question though, I call them my head meds. Do you ever get to a point where you think, because I do this all the time, okay, maybe I'd be better off now if I don't use them anymore? And like, how do you deal with that? Because this is the first time I've stayed on them for 3 years. First time. And my doctor was like, oh my God, we can actually now see what's working, what's not working. Right? Because I've always decided that maybe I should go off it because there were so many things happening. So I want to hear your take on that. And once again, thank you so much for your share, John.
Thank you so much, Horace. It's nice to see you tonight. I love seeing you at these meetings. So yeah, I back in 2022, I stopped taking everything. That was a rough year. I don't know if I was getting the best medical guidance, but when I first went to rehab in 2019, I started on one antidepressant, and I played around with the dosage on that myself. I wasn't going to therapy. I wasn't doing any kind of fellowships, any kind of recovery. I was just taking however much I wanted of this antidepressant and going about my business. And I relapsed. Didn't consider it a relapse, but anyway, so, substances will also mess with psych meds. And so during that year, I was seeing like different doctors too. Like, I went to a primary care doctor, he gave me some stuff and I was taking it, and then I was taking combinations of stuff. And by the end of it, I was having bad thoughts. And I believe one of the medicines was responsible for that. And so I stopped taking everything. But just based on my experience, I don't think I ever stopped cold turkey on my own and like waited to see what happens. But all I know is I don't want to stop taking it and find out what happens. Because one thing a lot of people in recovery have told me, not specifically about medications, but the programs, working the steps, going to meetings. Like I might reach a point where I think, oh, I'm good. I can stop doing all this stuff that's making me good. But it's all the stuff I'm doing, medicine included for me, that's making me the way I am right now, feeling good. And I have in the past stopped going to meetings, stopped seeing a sponsor, and that led me down a bad place. So yeah, I know that I don't want to just stop taking my meds, because if I feel okay, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. That's the best answer I got for you. Thanks, Horace.
Thank you, Horace and John. I'm not seeing any more questions. We could go into a little bit of sharing time if there's no other questions. Just a little, you can go ahead and raise your hands, but the little blurb we have about sharing is, ta-da, no. Please keep your sharing focused on your personal experience, strength, and hopes, and so that as many people as possible can share. Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. If there's, well, I'm not going to read that part. There's not going to be time remaining. When the timer goes off at 3 minutes, we invite you to wrap up your thoughts. And just a little word about crosstalk. To ensure each individual's safety, please no crosstalk. Crosstalk means making distracting noises or having sidebar discussions, interrupting, referring to, commenting on, or using contents of what another person has said during the meeting. This may include nonverbal communications as well as attempts to fix or rescue others by giving advice or trying to comfort them if they become emotional. We accept without comment what others share because it is true for them. We work toward taking responsibility in our own lives rather than giving advice to others. We do this by presenting all statements in the I first person form. All sharing should be directed to the entire group and never to any specific individual. The Red Book offers additional guidance. We could ask John permission if they have permission to refer to your share.
Yes, I was actually just typing that in the chat. I give permission to crosstalk me, and
Okay.
I don't get offended easily, so have at it.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And if there's a question / share